webinar, AEP 2016 Success Factors. I'm Robin Spira, and I will serve as the moderator on today's call. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us today. Before we get started, I'd like to take just a moment to go over a few housekeeping items. So on your screen, you should be seeing a Connecture title slide. If you're having any problems viewing this webinar, please send an email to marketing@connecture.com and we will try to assist you. Secondly, this presentation may contain forward-looking statements. Forward-looking statements involve risks, uncertainties, and assumptions that could cause actual results to differ from statements made on today's call. For more information, please visit the Investors section of our corporate website at connecture.com. Next, I'd like to explain today's process for asking questions. Due to the number of attendees we have on today's call, participant lines have been muted. If you would like to submit a question at any time, click the orange arrow in the upper right corner of your screen to open your question box. Questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. If you do not see the orange arrow, you can email questions directly to marketing@connecture.com. Should we run out of time for Q&A, any questions that were submitted and not addressed during the webinar will be personally answered via email after the presentation. At this time, I would like to introduce our speakers for today. Kevin McClain is the Senior Vice President and General Manager of Medicare Solutions. Kevin has served in multiple leadership roles at Connecture for over 12 years and currently oversees DRX operations, client services, and hosting services. Sharon Poturica is the Vice President of Client Services and Connecture's Medicare Compliance Officer. Sharon oversees the DRX Client Service Management teams for the main points of contact for all DRX customers during implementation and ongoing production support. Sharon has been with the company since 2006, which was the first year that Medicare Plan Compare and enrollment products were offered to the Medicare consumer. Now that you have some background on our speakers, let's get started.
Thanks, Robin. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kevin McClain, and I'm pleased to be co-presenting today's webinar with Sharon Poturica. With the passing of the Affordable Care Act, the under 65 business within our country is beginning to better understand the dynamics and efforts that come along with the cyclical and time-box selling and enrollment season. This has been named the Online Enrollment Period for the under 65 business. Well, what's new for the under 65 business is standard for those of us supporting the Medicare business. The senior market has been working within the confines of the annual enrollment period now for over 10 years. Getting ready for October is the focus for those of us in this business. Doesn't matter if you're a carrier, a broker, or a vendor, we all have the same perspective and the same end goal. If you're attending the webinar today, more than likely you understand the challenges and dependencies that exist throughout the year as we all prepare for AEP and look to accomplish a significant amount of work within a very set time frame. There are many dependencies that exist throughout the AEP implementation season, and some of them are included here on the screen. Carrier sales teams are dependent upon CMS for approvals for product filing. Carrier implementation team is dependent on their carrier sales and product teams of product development. The carrier implementation team is dependent on their vendor or vendors for their product offering and timing of those products. The carrier implementation team is dependent on CMS for approvals for the website. Vendors are dependent on carrier implementation teams for plan data and for end user testing. The measure of success for our business is when the consumer market has a positive experience shopping and enrolling in a carrier's Medicare, Medigap, and/or PD plan during AEP. Carriers, to achieve success, you must ensure tight communication and strong project management exists within your team and across all third parties, as well as ensure you have selected the right team along with the right vendor or set of vendors. We believe that the success factors for AEP implementation can be summarized across three main areas: people, process, and technology. The information Sharon will be presenting on the following slides is not Connecture specific unless stated as a Connecture example. The examples provided include information and factors we feel are critical for any carrier to achieve success during the AEP implementation season. Sharon will highlight Connecture specific examples to help provide relevance to those new on this webinar to the AEP implementation process. After Sharon communicates the critical success factors, I will wrap up the webinar with Connecture specific information regarding the top 10 occurrences we have seen during AEP in the past that can have quick remedies. Sharon, over to you.
Thanks, Kevin. As Kevin mentioned, we'll be focusing on 3 specific areas: the people, the process, and the technology. And let's go ahead with our first area, the people. It's important to define roles and responsibilities early, or as we like to say, don't assume. It's important to have a primary point of contact for your AEP project who understands relationships, dependencies, and the technology solutions that will be implemented. This primary point of contact needs to be able to field, translate, prioritize, and really be that primary point of contact for your internal project teams as well as your vendors. It goes without saying, but backup contacts should be identified ahead of time for any role transitions and out-of-office time. You may be moving people into the project role for the duration of the AEP preparation, and it's important to backfill those roles. And then it's important to identify your subject matter experts early so that they can be prepared to participate in the project when their time comes. I'd like to mention a Connecture-specific example related to our first bullet, which is the relationships, the person who understands the relationships. We find very often that clients' compliance departments are left out of the loop during the AEP preparation. So it's important for this primary point of contact to understand that they are a player in the success of the project and to understand how that compliance department wants to work with the project team during the preparation activities. Next, we have training is essential. It's quite common that carriers and vendors will introduce new team members to the AEP preparation process each year. I'd like to point out that if you do intend to leverage any contractors or if you have new staff joining the project, it's important that they be trained as early as possible on not only your business processes and your goals for the Medicare AEP season, but on the technology that will be used as well. For instance, if the first time a person on the project team learns what the shopping process is like on the Connecture product is when they're sitting down to do user acceptance testing, it's likely that they and the project team will be frustrated because they won't understand what it is they're testing. So training early becomes very important. The last topic on people is to conduct a kickoff, and to conduct a kickoff always. It's important that your internal project team have a kickoff meeting so that they are all on the same page regarding the goals of your implementation. And then it's important to co-lead a kickoff with your project team and your vendor or vendors so that everybody understands the agreed upon timelines, dependencies, any product features, or other items that will impact the implementation approach. Over the years, I'll mention for Connecture, it's become very important. We have worked with some of the same customers since 2006, and we treat each year as a brand new implementation with a focused kickoff meeting so that the project has an official start, goals are outlined, timelines are understood, and we take into account the current business needs and any new functionality that the product has to offer. Next, let's talk about the second area of focus, which is the process. It's important to define a triage process ahead of time. all projects will have something somewhere along the line that needs to be triaged. It's important to have an issue checklist so that all team members will understand if they encounter an issue, what is expected of them in reporting that issue so that it can be triaged and solved as quickly and efficiently as possible. It's important when reporting issues where possible to try to recreate them, to make sure that they actually are repeatable. And then it's important to review that triage process with the implementation team and the vendor team. A quite common Connecture example that I can give is that at some point along the project, somebody on the implementation team will mention, oh, I saw that same issue a few weeks ago, but I didn't know who to report it to. So that's a good example of why it's important that everybody on the implementation team understands what to do and how to report any issues that they might encounter. It's important to leverage lessons learned and best practices. I think it's common that many of us practice the lessons learned activity, which is post a project. We meet to discuss what went well, what maybe didn't go as well as it could have, and what improvements can be made. But the key to that process is then doing something with those findings. So it's important to take those lessons learned from the prior implementation season and to carry them into the new project. And I would suggest, even if your vendors have changed, that it's quite common that lessons learned from one vendor may very well apply to another. So you should carry those forward and discuss them with your vendor implementation team. Some additional process topics: centralized documentation and communication. It's important early on to decide where you will be keeping project documents so that day one, the things that need to be kept and stored are put in their proper place. It's very important to have a project plan with a timeline outlined. And it doesn't need to be Microsoft Project. It can be, but it can also be an Excel task list. The point is it needs to be documented and shared, understood, and used throughout the life of the project to be sure that you're on track. You should hold recurring meetings. That may go without saying, but it's very important that the project team become very accustomed to a standard process that they're expecting and that they practice. So a recurring meeting at the same time where the team members all know they will be checking in becomes important to the success of the project. And then a very simple example, but one that tends to trip people up. If you can do things like create a mail distribution list, so when project information needs to be communicated, everybody on the team can simply use that distribution list versus trying to remember who it is they need to communicate to, will help the project to be more efficient. And then finally, strong data management. In this area, these are all Connecture-specific examples. Data tends to be very specific to the project and any vendors you're working with. So in this area, we'd like to just mention, it's important to verify for AEP preparation that the complete set and the latest information from HPMS is sent to Connecture. HPMS, in case anyone is not aware, is the system in which carriers put all of their product benefit information, and that's the information we use to load your website. It's important to finalize the process for submitting regular pricing and pharmacy network updates throughout the year. Just as important as getting the site live for 10/1 is keeping it up to date timely throughout the entire selling year for all of 2016 in this case. Although pricing files are not required for the initial planned data load to begin implementation processes, those do affect drug pricing information. So this is an area where it's important to communicate to the team members if we don't have that pricing information, the team members know that they don't need to report any drug pricing issues until the time at which those files are loaded. It's also important to ensure that files are submitted on time. So they need to be submitted by the end of day Wednesday to ensure that they are all prepped and reviewed and validated for loading. And it gives us any time to communicate back with you if there should be any issues with the files. And then finally, we want to mention the websites often contain many plan documents, summary of benefits, enrollment forms, formulary, PDFs, etc. And it's important that either those documents are loaded or locations to those documents are loaded and that they're tagged properly. Tagging them allows them to appear in the proper area of the website. Plan documents are one of the more important features for consumers, brokers, and call center agents to have access to, so this is a very important step. Finally, let's talk about the technology component. It's important to understand the product. You should request from your vendor client services manager a list of the technology solutions supported browsers. And it's important to communicate that to your team members. A Connecture specific example that I can offer in this area are team members who become frustrated when they have followed the triage process and done a fair amount of documentation only to report a browser that may not be supported. For instance, an Opera browser, which only has 0.34 market share and is not a browser that most companies would support. It's important to leverage all training information and documentation for any administrative tools that you may have access to. And then leverage any test environments that you have access to. The whole purpose of a test environment is to not only test the software and its configuration, but to also use it to become very familiar and comfortable with how the technology works. You really can't hurt the test environment. That said, it would be good to have the control of configuration choices within a few hands in your organization, but the project team at large should feel very comfortable going into the test environment, using it, experimenting with it, running through it from start to finish, and then asking any questions that they may have. Understanding product-specific requirements is important. So in order for certain product features to operate correctly, often additional information may be needed. So for instance, for the Connecture mobile field enrollment and agent app products, we need to receive broker lists and agent level permission files. Otherwise, no agents will have access to the product. So it's important to understand for any of the features or components in the product what additional information you may need to provide. At this point, I would just like to mention that there is a second webinar in this series, which is entitled AEP 2016, Approaching the Next Generation of Medicare. And that webinar will be held on July 9th, and it will be presented by Don Formanak in the product group and Christian Parisi, who is the Strategic Account Development Manager. So if you haven't already taken advantage of signing up for that webinar, you may want to do so. In the technology area, you also want to be working on connectivity and internal network testing. Data files that we trade between us are often very large, and that's done via FTP or secure FTP sites. It would be important to test your ability to access these sites and transfer files before the first day that you need to do it. It's very common in health plans that access to outside FTP sites is fairly locked down, and you may need to engage an IT member of your staff to assist. So even more so, it's important to test this out early. We'd also like to suggest that in the area of anyone using the Connecture call center solution, It's important to test internal bandwidth and make sure that it's been optimized and prepared for AEP. There's a lot of traffic that will run through your call center areas beginning at the start of the marketing period. So it's important that you test that. And then finally, capacity planning. So this is similar to the previous slide, but slightly different. It's important to try to define the forecasted traffic and enrollment projections that your business has for the upcoming season and to communicate those to any of your vendors. Also, marketing campaigns are important. To the best that you are able to share any marketing initiatives and timing with vendors, it's important for companies like Connecture to be able to prepare for any expected increase in traffic that would coincide with when you'll be doing marketing campaigns. I'd like to turn it back over to Kevin to cover the Connecture Top 10 list.
Thanks, Sharon. We hope the overview of those critical success factors will be useful for you and your team as you plan out your AEP implementation strategy and approach this upcoming season. If you have any questions on any of the factors presented, please don't hesitate to let Sharon and me know. Before moving into the Q&A session, we did want to highlight and share some of the most frequent issues we have seen and that we have addressed in past AEP seasons. This top 10 list was an idea and a request that actually came from a few of our clients who attended our Connecture client forum earlier this year. And we agree it was a great idea, and we are happy to be sharing this information today. The following slides will provide the actual issue that occurred during a past AEP, and then we will provide the resolution, which in most cases had a simple remedy. Some of these are very Connecture specific, so if you're not a current Connecture client, some of the terms may be new to you. So let's walk through these together. So the first one on the list is, I'm receiving timeouts or errors on the screen. There are a couple of situations where this has occurred, where simple resolutions have been presented. First is, ensure the end user does not have multiple instances or browsers of the Connecture solution opened on the same computer. We've seen this many times with sales agents, brokers who are trying to work very quickly will have multiple sessions open on the same computer, which will cause timeout issues. The other is ensure the end user is using the Connecture navigation buttons when going back or going forward within the solution. The second one, I'm experiencing drug pricing and formulary issues. And you'll see a bit of a theme here that many of the items in our top 10 list deal with data. For this one, we want to ensure you're checking the submitted data. Many issues are associated to not submitting your carrier most recent updates to Connecture within the requested time frame. In fact, sometimes it's not submitted at all. Connecture requests during the AEP implementation season receiving this information bi-weekly from our carriers to ensure that as any changes occur, we have those loaded, so during testing, you have that information to check off and confirm during your UAT. I didn't receive my nightly enrollment file. Ensure your file retrieval schedule is not too close to Connecture's nightly runtime schedule. You may ask, well, what is Connecture's nightly runtime schedule? That is something that your client services manager will work with you on to explain our nightly schedule so that you can help schedule your run export time. This is all part of the AEP implementation kickoff that our CSM conducts and completes with your team. I'm receiving incorrect plan information. Verify that you have updated all data and links to your 2016 site. What we mean by this is you are going to have to make changes to your own website to ensure that you're pointing to the new calendar year website as your 2015 site, for instance, will still be active as we begin 2016 AEP. That is something we have seen on many occasions, even with the most tenured clients of ours, as it's a simple mistake that occurs again and again. I can't see all the plans I expect to see. This usually deals with permissioning. Verify that you are logged in with an account that has agent-level permissions. Also, verify that the carrier has given you permission to view the plan. So, for instance, if you're working on behalf of a carrier, or you're a broker, this is something that we have seen many times where someone believes they have access, but yet they were never given that access. It was never finalized and communicated. One of the best ones is things look funny with page rendering on the screen. Now, it means the site's still working and still operational. However, fields look out of alignment. Items might be misplaced. Usually, this has something to do with the browser that you're using. Connecture supports a large majority of the browsers out there today. And as Sharon mentioned earlier in her critical success slides, we do have a standard supported browser list. We provide that to our clients during the AEP implementation kickoff timeframe. So your CSM is going to have that information and provide that to you if you are a client of Connecture's during the implementation timeframe. I'm not seeing my latest pricing formula updates applied. Verify that your input the files into the correct folder for pickup, and at the appropriate time is passed for those files to be processed. Many times, if updates are not being seen and you believe they've been applied, it can be a timing issue, or it can be they've been put in the wrong location issue. The pricing updates in production are not matching staging. Note that Connecture staging environment is not always synced at the same time as production. Production pricing updates are completed first, then we update those down to stage as we get into the AEP post 10.1. I cannot locate my new plan year enrollment files. This is similar to one of the prior ones where it could be a location issue. So new plan year enrollment files will be exported to the exact same folder as your previous plan year folder unless you specified a different export target. Connecture is very flexible to put these wherever you would like, and we ask that you work with your client services manager if you have any questions or any requests on where these should be exported during AEP. Finally, for number 10, I uploaded a broker list file to the FTP, then tried testing, but I cannot log in with the new usernames. This one's very specific and one that for many of you who do not have a technical background or understanding with FTP, this is the transferring of files back and forth from Connecture system to the carrier system. The quick resolution on this one was ensuring that to drop the file to the correct plan year location into the right folder. We have a very standard naming format, incoming _ data files. Ensure that you have those folder structures and naming standards. Also understand that these files will be pushed up to stage and prod at multiple times per day at 5:30 and 7 p.m. Pacific time. So our goal with the information, and let me just conclude with, if you still cannot see on this one, as we've seen it multiple times, ensure that you work with your client services manager for further investigation for this one or for any of those where you still need additional help. Our goal is that this information we just shared will help you and your team triage issues in a quicker manner as they may occur during AEP. However, by no means are we trying to convey that this list is to serve as a replacement for our client support structure or our issue triaging process. If and when you have questions or issues during AEP, you should always feel comfortable reaching out to your client services manager. Thank you for your time. We hope that the information has been helpful, and we look forward to addressing your questions. Back to you, Robin.
All right. Thank you, Kevin, and thank you, Sharon. We do have a couple of questions, and we've got several minutes to answer questions. So if any of you have questions, you can either send them through the questions box through GoToMeeting, or you can send us a quick email to marketing@connecture.com, and we will address those on this call. The first question that we've received is, what type of training does Connecture offer for AEP? I guess that could be to Kevin or to Sharon.
But I'll go ahead and take that. So we offer a number of different types of training. The first would be to start with your client service manager to work on a plan for the particular folks that need to be trained, what they need to be trained on, and the best method. We have training videos available on how to use our administration tool, and they are in small snippets that are topical, so the user who needs the training can go after exactly the particular piece of information they need. We have FAQ guides that are available in the administration tool. We have Train the Trainer training available for call centers, so that the Connecture folks can train those folks that will be training your call center agents. And then finally, I would say we can create any specific training with the client service manager and your team members if those previous items don't address your needs.
I would add that training is usually something within the contracting that we incorporate into the master services agreement or into the statement for what exactly it is we're providing from a service to our clients.
Great, thank you. And the next question, have there been any changes made to Connecture's product offering with regards to AEP 2016? And if so, what are they?
I'll start on that one, Sharon. I think Sharon mentioned earlier when she was talking about within technology, understanding the product. We have another webinar next week that is actually covering the majority, if not all, of the changes that our product R&D team have completed for this upcoming 2016 AEP. A lot of our changes, a lot of the product modifications and enhancements have been included within an updated user interface to enhance the consumer shopping experience, as well as some of our product offerings around our broker and agent tools. Sharon mentioned earlier with Agent App and Mobile Field Enrollment, as well as tools or new products such as our retention module and offering ancillary products. Sharon, anything to add to that?
No, I would just say that in the area of individual features and options, even if not new, it's a good opportunity each year to revisit the options that you have available in the website to turn on and off. There may be an option that you didn't wish to take advantage of in a previous year that now you do, or vice versa. So it's a good time to even review the entire option list.
All right, great. Well, I don't have any more questions from any of the folks out there today, but if you do have any questions after the webinar, again, feel free to send those directly to marketing@connecture.com. Once again, we would just like to thank you for joining us today. If you would like additional information, or if you would like to schedule a consultative strategy session with Connecture thought leaders, please contact us at marketing@connecture.com. This webinar has been recorded, so you will receive an email shortly with a link to the video so that you can view it again or pass it to another person within your organization. Again, thank you for joining us today, and have a good one.